Reprogram your mind before it's too late. MindForge Audiobooks. Introduction. Your life is not shaped by what you want. It is shaped by how your mind has been programmed. Most of your thoughts are not intentional. They are automatic. Repeated patterns running in the background, influencing your decisions without your awareness. You believe you are thinking freely, but in reality, much of what you do is guided by habits, past experiences, and beliefs you never consciously chose. Think about it. The way you react to stress, the way you make decisions, the way you see yourself, all of it has been shaped over time, not in one moment, but through repetition, through what you were exposed to, what you were told, what you experienced, and what you kept repeating. And this is where the real problem begins. Because when you live on mental autopilot, you don't question your patterns. You follow them. You repeat the same behaviors, make the same mistakes, and stay in the same cycles, wondering why nothing changes. Not because you lack potential, but because your programming keeps pulling you back to what is familiar. And the most dangerous part? You tell yourself you'll change later. Later, when you have more time. Later, when you feel ready. Later, when things are easier. But later is an illusion. It quietly turns into never. And while you wait, your current patterns continue to shape your future. This is why rewiring your thinking is not optional. It's urgent. Because if you don't consciously reprogram your mind, it will continue to run on default settings. And those settings will keep producing the same results. But here's the shift. Reprogramming your mind does not mean becoming someone else. It means becoming aware of what is already controlling you and choosing to change it. It means replacing automatic reactions with intentional actions. It means breaking patterns and building new ones. In this audiobook, you're going to see how your mind actually works, not on the surface, but underneath. You'll begin to notice the patterns, the loops, and the hidden forces shaping your life. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. And once you understand them, you can change them. This is where control begins. Chapter 1. You are not thinking, you are conditioned. You believe your thoughts are your own. You believe your opinions, your reactions, your decisions come from independent thinking. But most of the time, they don't. They come from conditioning, patterns that were built long before you were aware enough to question them. Your beliefs did not appear overnight. They were formed slowly, quietly, and repeatedly, starting in childhood, at a time when your mind was most open, most impressionable, and least critical. You didn't analyze what you heard. You absorbed it, what your family said, what your environment showed, what your culture repeated, what your experiences reinforced. All of it entered your mind without resistance. If you were told something enough times, you began to believe it. If you experienced something repeatedly, you began to expect it. And over time, those beliefs became part of your identity, not because they were true, but because they were repeated. This is how conditioning begins. A child does not question reality. A child accepts it. If you grew up hearing money is hard to earn, you didn't analyze it. You accepted it. If you were told you're not good enough, you're shy, you're not capable, those words didn't pass through logic. They became part of how you saw yourself, and the more those ideas were repeated, the deeper they became. Repetition is powerful because your brain does not prioritize truth. It prioritizes familiarity. What you hear often feels true. What you experience repeatedly feels real. And over time, repetition builds subconscious patterns. These patterns operate automatically. You don't think about them. You don't question them. You follow them. This is why you react the way you do without always understanding why. Why certain situations trigger you. Why you hesitate in specific moments. Why you doubt yourself even when you have the ability. These reactions are not random. They are conditioned responses, built over time, reinforced through repetition. Your subconscious mind is like a system running in the background. It stores everything you've experienced, everything you've learned, everything you've repeated, and uses it to guide your behavior. And the most important thing to understand is this: it does not care whether those patterns are helpful or harmful. It only cares that they are familiar. This is why people repeat the same cycles, not because they want to, but because their conditioning pulls them back. You may want to change. You may want to improve, but your subconscious patterns are stronger than your intentions, and unless you become aware of them, they will continue to control you. Your environment plays a major role in this process, because your environment is where your conditioning is constantly reinforced. The people around you, the conversations you hear, the behaviors you observe, the expectations placed on you. All of these shape your identity. If you grow up in an environment where risk is avoided, you learn to play safe. If you grow up where success feels unreachable, you learn to limit yourself. If you are surrounded by negativity, you begin to think negatively. You don't choose these patterns, you absorb them. And over time, they become your normal. That's why your identity is not something fixed. It is something shaped. And most of that shaping happens unconsciously. You become a reflection of what you repeatedly experience. And because it feels familiar, you don't question it. You accept it. This is where the illusion begins. Because your thoughts feel real. They feel original. They feel like they belong to you. But in many cases, they are simply echoes of what you've been exposed to, ideas you've heard, beliefs you've absorbed, patterns you've repeated. Your mind presents them as your own thinking, but they are often borrowed, conditioned, installed. This is why two people can see the same situation differently, not because reality is different, but because their conditioning is different. One person sees opportunity, another sees risk. One person feels confident, another feels doubt. The situation is the same. The interpretation is not, because interpretation comes from conditioning, not from objective truth. And this is what makes conditioning so powerful and so dangerous, because it feels invisible. You don't see it. You don't question it. You live through it. You believe you are thinking freely, but in reality, your thoughts are being guided by patterns you didn't choose. This is why awareness is the first step to change, because you cannot change what you do not see. You cannot break patterns you do not recognize. You cannot take control if you don't realize what is controlling you. The moment you begin to question your thoughts, something shifts. Instead of automatically accepting them, you start observing them. You ask, where did this belief come from? Is this actually true or just repeated? Is this helping me or limiting me? These questions create distance. They break the automatic loop. They give you space to think intentionally. And in that space, something powerful happens. You regain control. Because once you see that your thoughts are not always original, you stop blindly following them. You begin to choose. You begin to decide. You begin to think for yourself. And that is where reprogramming begins. Not by forcing new beliefs, but by questioning old ones. Not by ignoring your conditioning, but by understanding it. Because the truth is, you were not born with limitations. You learned them. And what is learned can be unlearned, but only if you are willing to see it. Only if you are willing to question it. Only if you are willing to step outside the patterns that have been running your life. You are not your conditioning. But until you become aware of it, it will feel like you are. And that is why this chapter matters. Because once you realize you are not always thinking, you are being conditioned, you stop reacting automatically, and you start thinking intentionally. And that is the first step to taking your mind back. Chapter 2. The Subconscious Loop. Your life follows patterns, not random actions, not isolated decisions, but repeated cycles that happen again and again, often without you noticing. These cycles form what we call the subconscious loop. It works in a simple structure: trigger, thought, action, result. This loop runs quietly in the background of your mind. It shapes your behavior, your habits, and eventually your life. Let's break it down. A trigger is the starting point. It can be anything: a situation, a feeling, a memory, or even a small event. For example, stress at work, boredom at home, or a message from someone. The trigger activates something inside you. Then comes the thought. This thought appears quickly, often automatically. You don't sit down and create it. It just shows up. It could be something like, I can't handle this, or I need a break, or I'll deal with it later. Next is the action. Based on that thought, you do something. You might avoid the task, scroll on your phone, eat something, or react emotionally. This action feels natural because it follows your thought. Finally, there is the result. This is what happens after your action. Maybe you feel temporary relief, maybe guilt, maybe nothing at all. But whatever the result is, it feeds back into your mind. And then the loop repeats. This cycle happens so fast that you rarely notice it. It feels like one continuous flow, but it is actually a structured pattern. Over time, this loop becomes stronger. Why? Because of repetition. The more you go through the same loop, the more automatic it becomes. Your brain starts to expect it. It becomes a habit. And habits are powerful. They remove the need for thinking. They allow your brain to save energy by repeating what it already knows. This is useful in some cases. For example, you don't need to think about how to brush your teeth or tie your shoes. Your brain has learned the pattern. But the same system also creates negative patterns. If your loop leads to avoidance, procrastination, or poor decisions, it will still become automatic. Your brain does not judge the quality of the habit. It only strengthens what is repeated. This is why you may find yourself doing the same things again and again, even when you know they are not helping you. You promise to change. You tell yourself, this time will be different. But when the trigger appears, the same thought comes, the same action follows, and the same result happens. This is not a lack of intelligence. It is the power of the subconscious loop. You are not choosing in that moment. You are repeating. That is why change feels difficult. Because you are not just changing a decision. You are changing a pattern. And patterns are built over time. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you feel stressed. Trigger. Your mind says, I need to relax. Thought. You open social media or watch videos. Action. You feel temporary relief but waste time. Result. Next time you feel stress, your brain remembers this loop. It says, this worked before. And the cycle repeats. After many repetitions, this becomes your default response. You don't think about it. You just do it. This is how habits are formed. Not through one big decision, but through many small repeated loops. The problem is, many of these loops are unconscious. You don't see them clearly. You only see the result. You see that you are stuck. You see that you are repeating mistakes, but you don't always see the pattern behind it. That is why awareness is so important, because you cannot break a loop you do not recognize. The first step is to slow down and observe. Instead of asking, why do I always fail? Ask, what is the trigger? What thought appears? What action do I take? What result do I get? When you start asking these questions, you begin to see the structure. You begin to understand that your behavior is not random. It follows a system. And once you see the system, you can change it. Breaking the subconscious loop does not require you to change everything at once. It requires you to interrupt the pattern. And the best place to do that is between thought and action, because that is where choice exists. When a trigger happens, the thought will still appear. That is normal. You cannot stop every thought, but you can pause before acting on it. That pause is powerful. It creates space. In that space, you can ask, do I want to follow this pattern again? Or, can I choose something different? Even a small change can break the loop. For example, instead of scrolling your phone, you take a short walk. Instead of avoiding a task, you start with one small step. Instead of reacting emotionally, you take a deep breath. At first, this will feel difficult, because your brain is used to the old pattern. It will try to pull you back. It will say, this is easier, or this is what we always do. But every time you choose a different action, you weaken the old loop. and you start building a new one. New trigger, new thought, new action, new result. This is how reprogramming begins, not through big changes, but through small, consistent interruptions. You also need to be patient, because the loop was not created in one day, and it will not change in one day, but with repetition, the new pattern becomes stronger, just like the old one did. Over time, your new actions start to feel natural. You no longer force them. They become automatic. That is when real change happens. You are not fighting your habits anymore. You have replaced them. Another important point is this: do not focus only on stopping bad habits. Focus on creating better ones, because your brain always needs a pattern. If you remove one loop without replacing it, the old one will return. So instead of asking, "How do I stop this?" ask, "What can I do instead?" This keeps your mind active and focused. It gives your brain a new direction. The subconscious loop is not your enemy. It is a system, and once you understand it, you can use it in your favor. You can design better habits, better reactions, better results, because your life is not shaped by single decisions. It is shaped by repeated patterns, and those patterns come from the loops you follow every day. So start noticing your loops. Start questioning them. Start interrupting them, because once you break the unconscious cycle, you stop living on autopilot, and you start living with intention. Chapter 3. The Illusion of Control. You believe you are in control of your thoughts, your decisions, and your actions. It feels that way. You think, you decide, you act. Simple. But what if that feeling of control is not as real as it seems? What if most of your decisions are not truly chosen, but triggered? This is the illusion of control. It is the belief that you are fully in charge, when in reality, much of what you do is influenced by processes happening before you are even aware of them. Your brain is always working in the background. It is constantly scanning, predicting, and reacting. And it does this very fast, faster than your conscious mind can keep up. Before you decide something, your brain has already started moving in a direction. You just become aware of it a moment later. That's why many of your actions feel automatic. Think about small daily behaviors: checking your phone, responding quickly in a conversation, choosing what to eat. These actions often happen without deep thinking. You don't sit and analyze every option. You simply act. And after acting, your mind creates a story. It explains the action as if you chose it logically. But in many cases, the action came first. The explanation came after. It's like your mind is a narrator, not always the controller. This is where the illusion becomes powerful. Because when something feels like a decision, you trust it. You believe it. You don't question it. And that is where mistakes begin. Another key part of this illusion is emotion. You may believe you act based on logic, but in reality, emotions often lead and logic follows. You feel something first. Then you think about it. For example, imagine you feel fear, maybe in a new situation, a new opportunity, or a difficult conversation. That feeling appears instantly. Your body reacts, your heart rate changes, your mind becomes focused on risk. Only after that does logic try to explain. It might say, "This is not the right time," or "I need to be more prepared." But often, that is not logic. That is emotion speaking in a logical voice. The same happens with desire. You want something. You feel attraction, excitement, or urgency. And then your mind creates reasons to justify it. This is a good decision. I deserve this. Again, the feeling comes first. The reasoning comes later. This is not a weakness. It is how the brain is designed. Your brain is built for survival, not perfect decision-making. And survival requires speed, not deep analysis. To survive, your brain needs to react quickly. It cannot wait for long logical thinking in every situation, so it uses shortcuts. These shortcuts are based on past experiences, patterns, and emotions. They help you act fast, but they are not always accurate. And this is where the problem begins, because the world you live in today is different. Most of your decisions are not about immediate survival. They are about long-term outcomes. Career, relationships, health, growth, these require thinking, not just reacting. But your brain still uses the same fast system. It looks for certainty. It looks for safety. It tries to reduce discomfort as quickly as possible. This creates a strong need for certainty. Your brain does not like the unknown. Uncertainty feels uncomfortable. It feels like danger, even when it is not. So your mind tries to create clear answers. It jumps to conclusions. It fills in missing information. It chooses familiar options, not because they are correct, but because they feel safe. This is why people stay in situations they know are not right, jobs they don't enjoy, habits that don't help them, patterns that hold them back. Because familiarity feels like control, even if it limits growth. Your brain prefers a known problem over an unknown possibility, because the unknown creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates discomfort. So your mind gives you a feeling of control, even when you are just repeating patterns. That feeling is powerful, because it stops you from questioning. If you believe you are fully in control, you don't look deeper. You don't ask why you reacted a certain way. You don't examine your patterns. You simply continue. And this is how the illusion continues, day after day, decision after decision, without awareness. But here's the important part. The goal is not to eliminate this system. You cannot remove it. It is part of how your brain works. The goal is to become aware of it, because awareness changes everything. When you become aware, you start to notice your reactions. You begin to see the moment between feeling and action. You recognize when emotion is leading. You question when something feels obviously right. That small shift creates space. And in that space, control begins. Real control does not come from forcing your thoughts. It comes from observing them. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause. You ask simple questions. Why am I feeling this? Is this reaction automatic? Am I choosing this or repeating it? These questions slow down the process. They give your logical mind time to engage. And when logic has time, your decisions improve. Not perfectly, but more consciously. You begin to act with intention instead of impulse. You also become less controlled by emotion, not because emotions disappear, but because you stop following them blindly. You feel them. You recognize them, but you don't always obey them. That is a major shift. From reaction to response, from automatic to intentional. It may seem small, but it changes everything. Because your life is shaped by your repeated actions, and your actions are shaped by your level of awareness. If you are unaware, you repeat patterns. If you are aware, you can change them. The illusion of control keeps you comfortable, but awareness gives you real control. It may feel uncomfortable at first, because you start to see things clearly. You notice habits you didn't question before. You recognize patterns you thought were choices. But this discomfort is important. It means you are no longer on autopilot. You are starting to see. And once you see, you cannot go back. You begin to notice your thinking more often. You pause more often. You question more often. And slowly your decisions become more intentional. Not perfect, but better, more aligned, more conscious. Real control is not about controlling everything. It is about understanding what is happening inside your mind. It is about recognizing when you are reacting and choosing when to respond. Because the truth is simple. You are not always in control, but you can become more aware. And awareness is the first real step toward control, not the illusion, but the real thing. Chapter 4. Limiting beliefs are invisible chains. Many of the limits in your life are not real. They are not physical. They are not visible, but they are powerful. They live in your mind as beliefs. Simple sentences like, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. It's too late for me. These thoughts may feel true, but most of the time, they are not facts. They are limiting beliefs. and they act like invisible chains. They don't stop your body. They stop your actions. They don't block your path. They block your thinking. And because you cannot see them, you rarely question them. You just accept them. Let's understand how these beliefs are formed. Most of them start early in life. As a child, you listen to people around you, parents, teachers, friends, society. If you hear something many times, your brain starts to believe it. For example, if someone says, "You are not good at speaking," "You are not smart enough," "You always fail." At first, these are just words, but with repetition, they become beliefs. And once a belief is formed, your brain treats it like truth, even if it is not. As you grow, these beliefs stay with you. They become part of your identity. You don't say, "I think I am not good enough." You say, "I am not good enough." That is the difference. A thought becomes a belief, and a belief shapes your behavior. This is where the real problem begins, because your actions follow your beliefs. If you believe you can't do something, you won't try. If you believe you are not enough, you will hold back. If you believe it's too late, you will stop before you start. Not because it is true, but because you believe it is true. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you believe, "I am bad at public speaking." What happens next? You avoid speaking. You don't practice. You feel nervous when you try. And when you make a mistake, you say, "See, I was right." This creates a cycle. Belief, action, result, stronger belief. You believe something. You act based on that belief. You get a result, and that result strengthens your belief. This is how limiting beliefs grow stronger over time, even if the belief is wrong. Another important part is self-sabotage. Self-sabotage means you stop your own progress, not because you want to fail, but because your beliefs hold you back. For example, you want to start something new, but a voice in your mind says, "What if you fail?" So you delay. Or you start, but you don't give full effort. Or you quit early. This is not laziness. This is your belief trying to protect you. Your brain wants to avoid pain. It wants to avoid failure. So it keeps you in your comfort zone, even if that comfort keeps you stuck. This is why many people stay in the same place for years. Not because they don't have ability, but because they have limiting beliefs, and those beliefs control their actions. The hardest part is that these beliefs are often hidden. You don't always hear them clearly. They show up in small ways: hesitation, doubt, fear, delay. You say things like, "I'll do it later," "I need more time," "I'm not ready yet." But behind these words, there is often a belief, a hidden thought like, "I might fail," "I'm not capable," "I'm not ready for this." To change your life, you must first identify these beliefs. You need to bring them into the light, because what you can see, you can change. Start by paying attention to your thoughts, especially in moments when you hesitate. Ask yourself, what am I telling myself right now? Why am I not taking action? Listen carefully. You may hear, "I'm not good enough. This is too hard. People will judge me." These are your limiting beliefs. Once you identify them, the next step is to question them. Ask, "Is this really true? Do I have proof? Or is this just something I've believed for a long time?" You will often realize something important. These beliefs are not facts. They are stories. Stories repeated so many times that they feel real. But they can be changed, not by thinking once, but by acting differently. Action is the key, because new actions create new results, and new results create new beliefs. For example, if you believe, "I can't do this," but you try anyway, even a small step, you start to collect evidence. You see that you can try, you can learn, you can improve. Slowly, your belief begins to change. "I can't" becomes "maybe I can," and "maybe I can" becomes "I can." This is how you break the chain, not by waiting for confidence, but by acting despite doubt. You don't need to remove every negative thought. You just need to stop obeying it. You can feel doubt and still move. You can feel fear and still act. Every time you do this, you weaken the old belief, and you build a new one. Also, be careful with the words you use. Your language shapes your thinking. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," say, "I am learning this." Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," say, "I am improving." This may feel simple, but it is powerful, because your brain listens to what you repeat, and over time, it starts to believe it. Remember this: limiting beliefs are not permanent. They are learned, and anything that is learned can be changed, but only if you are aware of it, only if you challenge it, only if you act despite it. You are not stuck because of your situation. You are stuck because of the story you believe about your situation. Change the story, and your actions will change. Change your actions, and your life will change. So start today. Notice your thoughts, question your beliefs, and take one small step forward, because those invisible chains only work if you don't see them. Once you see them, you can break them. Chapter 5. Your environment is reprogramming you daily. Every day, your mind is being shaped. Not just by your thoughts, but by your environment, the people you talk to, the content you watch, the places you spend time in. All of these are constantly influencing how you think, even when you don't notice it. Your brain is always absorbing information. It listens, watches, and learns from what is around you. And over time, this input becomes part of your thinking. This is how your environment reprograms you, quietly, repeatedly, every day. Think about how much time you spend on social media, scrolling, watching videos, reading comments. You may feel like you are just passing time, but your brain is not passive. It is learning. It is comparing. It is building ideas about what is normal, what is success, and what matters. For example, if you constantly see people showing success, money, or perfect lives, your mind starts to compare. You may feel behind. You may feel not good enough, even if your life is fine. This is the effect of comparison. It changes how you see yourself, not based on reality, but based on what you see every day. And most of what you see is not real. It is edited, selected, and filtered. But your brain does not always understand that. It reacts emotionally. It creates pressure. It creates doubt. This is how your environment shapes your mindset, not by forcing you, but by influencing you. Another powerful factor is the people around you, your friends, family, and daily circle. Their words, beliefs, and habits affect you more than you think. If you spend time with people who complain often, you start to think negatively. If you spend time with people who avoid risks, you become more careful and fearful. If your environment is full of doubt, your confidence will slowly decrease, not because you want it, but because you absorb it. Humans are social by nature. We adapt to fit in. We adjust our thinking to match the group. This is called social influence, and it is very strong. Because your brain wants acceptance. It wants to belong, so it copies patterns from your surroundings, even when those patterns are not helpful. This is why your circle matters, not just for support, but for your mindset. If you are surrounded by people who grow, learn, and take action, you will start doing the same. If you are surrounded by people who stay stuck, you may stay stuck too. Your environment sets the standard. It defines what feels normal, and over time, you become that normal. Another important part is validation. Many people today depend on external validation, likes, comments, opinions of others. This creates a habit of seeking approval. Instead of thinking, "Do I believe this?" you start thinking, "Will others like this?" This shift is dangerous because it moves control from inside to outside. You begin to shape your actions based on reactions, not based on your values. This weakens your confidence because your decisions are no longer yours. They depend on others, and others are unpredictable. One day they support you, another day they don't. So your confidence goes up and down. This is the hidden effect of your environment. It programs not only your thoughts, but also your behavior. The good news is this: you can take control. You may not control everything around you, but you can control your inputs, what you watch, what you read, who you listen to. Start by becoming aware. Notice what you consume daily. Ask yourself, is this helping me grow? Or is this making me doubt myself? If something creates negativity, comparison, or fear, reduce it. You don't need to remove everything, but you need to be selective. Choose content that adds value, content that teaches, inspires, or challenges you to grow. Your mind becomes what it consumes. If you feed it noise, it becomes confused. If you feed it growth, it becomes stronger. The same applies to people. You don't always need to leave your circle, but you can limit negative influence. Spend more time with people who support growth, people who take action, people who think differently. If that is not available around you, you can find it online. Books, videos, podcasts. Your circle is not only physical, it is also digital. Choose it carefully. Another powerful step is creating your own environment. Build routines, create space for focus, reduce distractions. Even small changes matter. For example, working in a clean, quiet place improves focus. Turning off notifications reduces distraction. Starting your day with learning instead of scrolling changes your mindset. These small actions shape your environment, and your environment shapes your thinking. Over time, this creates a new pattern, a new way of thinking, a new identity. Instead of being influenced without awareness, you become intentional. You choose what enters your mind. You choose what stays. You choose what grows. This is real control, because you may not control every situation, but you can control what you allow to influence you, and that changes everything. Your thoughts become clearer. Your confidence becomes stronger. Your actions become more aligned, because now your environment is not controlling you. You are controlling your environment. So remember this: you are not only shaped by your thoughts, you are shaped by what you see, hear, and experience every day. If you want to change your mind, start by changing your environment, because what surrounds you today becomes who you are tomorrow. Chapter 6. Emotions override logic. You may believe that you make decisions using logic. You think carefully. You analyze. You choose what makes sense. But in reality, most of your decisions begin with emotion. You feel first. Then you think. This is how the brain works. Emotions are fast. Logic is slow. When something happens, your brain does not wait for deep thinking. It reacts immediately. That reaction is emotional. Only after that does logic try to explain what you feel. For example, imagine you are about to try something new, a new job, a new idea, or a new opportunity. Before you think deeply, you may feel fear. Your body becomes tense. Your thoughts become uncertain. Then your mind starts giving reasons. This is risky. This might not work. I need more time. These reasons feel logical, but they often come from emotion. Fear comes first. Logic comes later. The same happens with comfort. When something feels easy or familiar, your brain relaxes. You feel safe. Then your mind says, "This is fine. This is good enough," even if it is not helping you grow. This is why emotions can override logic. They influence your decisions before you even notice. Fear is one of the strongest emotions. It is designed to protect you. In the past, fear helped humans survive. It warned about danger. It helped you react quickly. But today, most fears are not about survival. They are about discomfort, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. These are not dangerous, but your brain treats them like they are. So it tries to protect you. It pushes you back into your comfort zone. The comfort zone is a place where things feel safe and familiar. There is less risk, less uncertainty, but there is also less growth, because growth happens outside comfort. The problem is, your brain prefers comfort. It avoids anything that feels uncomfortable, even if that discomfort leads to improvement. This creates a trap. You want to grow, but your emotions push you to stay the same. You know what you should do, but you don't do it. Not because you don't understand, but because you feel something stronger. That feeling controls your action. Another emotional trap is anxiety. Anxiety is often linked to overthinking. You imagine different outcomes. You focus on what could go wrong. Your mind creates many scenarios, most of them negative. This creates stress, and stress reduces your ability to think clearly. Instead of acting, you delay. Instead of deciding, you hesitate. Again, emotion is leading. Logic is not in control. This is why two people can face the same situation, but make completely different decisions, because they feel differently. One may feel confident, another may feel afraid. The situation is the same, but the emotion changes the action. This shows how powerful emotions are. They shape your decisions, they shape your behavior, and over time, they shape your life. But here is the important part. You do not need to remove emotions. That is not possible, and it is not necessary. Emotions are useful. They give signals. They tell you what matters. But they should not control every action. You need to create a balance. You need to create space between feeling and action. That space is where control begins. When you feel something strong, fear, anxiety, excitement, pause. Do not act immediately. Take a moment. Observe what you feel. Name it. This is fear. This is anxiety. When you name the emotion, it becomes clearer. It becomes something you can see, not something that controls you. Then ask yourself, is this feeling helping me, or is it stopping me? This question brings logic into the situation. It slows down the process. It gives your mind time to think. You don't remove the emotion. You manage it. For example, if you feel fear before doing something important, instead of avoiding it, you can say, I feel fear, but I will still act. This is a powerful shift. You are not waiting for the feeling to disappear. You are acting despite it. This is how confidence grows, not by removing fear, but by moving with it. Another useful method is to focus on small actions. When emotions feel strong, big decisions feel difficult. So reduce the size. Take one small step. If you feel anxious about starting something, just begin with a simple part. This reduces pressure. It makes action easier. And once you start, the emotion often becomes weaker. Action reduces emotional intensity. Inaction increases it. Also, practice awareness daily. Notice your reactions. When you feel something, don't ignore it. Observe it. Learn from it. Over time, you will start recognizing patterns. You will see when emotions are leading you, and you will be able to respond differently. This takes practice. It will not happen instantly, but with repetition, it becomes easier. You become less reactive, more intentional, more in control. Remember this: emotions are fast, logic is slow. If you act too quickly, emotion will control you. If you pause, logic has a chance to speak, and that small pause can change everything, because your life is not shaped by how you feel, but by how you act on those feelings. So do not fight your emotions. Understand them, observe them, and most importantly, do not let them decide for you, because real control is not about feeling less. It is about choosing better actions despite what you feel. Chapter 7. Breaking the Pattern. Your life follows patterns. Not just big decisions, but small daily actions repeated again and again. The way you think, the way you react, the way you behave, all of it forms patterns. And these patterns create your results. If your patterns stay the same, your results stay the same. That is why real change is not about one big decision. It is about breaking old patterns and building new ones. To do this, you need a simple process: awareness, interruption, replacement. This is how you change your behavior. Let's understand each step. First is awareness. You cannot change something you do not see. Most of your habits are automatic. You don't notice them. You just follow them. So the first step is to observe. Pay attention to your actions, especially in moments when you repeat something you don't like. Ask yourself, what am I doing right now? Why am I doing this? Notice the trigger. Notice the thought. Notice the action. This awareness is powerful because it brings your pattern into the light. And once you see it, you have a choice. The second step is interruption. This is where change begins. When you recognize a pattern, you pause. You stop the automatic action, even for a few seconds. That pause breaks the flow. It creates space. For example, you feel the urge to check your phone. Normally, you would do it without thinking, but now you pause. You stop yourself, even for a moment. That is interruption. It may feel small, but it is important, because it stops the old pattern from continuing. Without interruption, nothing changes. You simply repeat. The third step is replacement. You don't just stop a habit, you replace it. Because your brain always looks for action. If you remove one behavior and leave nothing in its place, the old behavior will return, so you choose a new action. For example, instead of checking your phone, you take a deep breath. Instead of avoiding a task, you start with one small step. Instead of reacting with anger, you stay silent for a moment. This new action becomes the replacement. At first, it will feel unnatural, because your brain is used to the old pattern. But with repetition, the new pattern becomes stronger. This is how habits change, not by force, but by consistent replacement. Now let's talk about habits. Habits are repeated actions. They become automatic over time. Good habits help you grow. Bad habits keep you stuck. The key is not to remove habits, but to change them. You take an old habit and replace it with a better one. For example, if you are used to procrastinating, replace it with starting small. If you are used to negative thinking, replace it with questioning your thoughts. These changes may seem simple, but they are powerful because they happen daily, and daily actions shape your life. This is where small, consistent changes matter. Many people try to change everything at once. They set big goals. They make big plans, but they fail. Not because they are weak, but because the change is too big. Your brain resists sudden change. It prefers what is familiar. So instead of big changes, focus on small ones. Small actions are easier to repeat, and repetition is what builds habits. For example, instead of saying, "I will work for 5 hours," start with 10 minutes. Instead of saying, "I will change my life," start with one small action today. These small steps create momentum, and momentum creates change. Over time, these small changes grow. They become your new pattern. They become your new normal. But here is something important. Change feels uncomfortable. Always. Because you are moving away from what is familiar. Your brain does not like this. It wants to stay in known patterns, even if they are not helpful. So when you try to change, you feel resistance. You feel discomfort. You may feel doubt. This is normal. It does not mean something is wrong. It means you are changing. Think of it like this. Your old pattern is like a path. It is clear. It is easy to follow. Your new pattern is like a new path. It is not clear yet. It takes effort. But the more you walk on it, the clearer it becomes, and eventually, it becomes easier. This is how change works. At first, it feels hard. Then it feels normal. Then it feels automatic. That is when the new pattern is built. You must also be patient. Change takes time. You will not see results immediately. But every small action counts. Every interruption matters. Every replacement builds something new. Do not wait for motivation. Do not wait to feel ready. Focus on consistency, even when it feels small, even when it feels slow, because consistency creates identity. You stop being someone who reacts. You become someone who chooses. You stop being controlled by patterns. You become someone who creates them. And that is real change. Breaking the pattern is not about being perfect. It is about being aware. It is about interrupting what no longer helps you and replacing it with something better, again and again, until it becomes who you are. So start today. Notice one pattern, interrupt it, replace it, and repeat. Because your life is not changed by big moments. It is changed by small actions done consistently. And once you change your patterns, you change your life. Chapter 8. Reprogram through repetition. Your brain learns through repetition, not through one idea, not through one moment, but through what you repeat every day. Whatever you do again and again, your brain starts to believe it. This is how habits are formed. This is how identity is built. And this is how your mind is reprogrammed. If you repeat doubt, your brain learns doubt. If you repeat action, your brain learns action. It does not judge what is good or bad. It only strengthens what is repeated. This is important to understand, because many people try to change their life with one decision. They feel motivated. They decide to change. But after a few days, they go back to old patterns. Why? Because one decision is not enough. Repetition is what creates change. Let's talk about affirmations. Affirmations are positive statements like, I am confident. I am strong. I can do this. These can be helpful, but only to a certain level. If you say these words but your actions do not match, your brain does not fully believe them, because your brain trusts evidence more than words. If you say, I am confident, but you avoid action, your brain sees the truth, and it creates doubt. This is why affirmations alone are not enough. They must be supported by behavior. Real change happens when your actions repeat the same message. For example, if you act confidently, even in small ways, your brain collects evidence. It sees your behavior, and it updates your belief. I am becoming confident. This is the difference. Words start the process, but actions complete it. Now think about your daily life. What are you repeating? Your habits are your repetition. The way you start your day, the way you respond to problems, the way you use your time. All of these actions are programming your mind. Every day, you are sending messages to yourself. If you delay tasks, your brain learns delay. If you take action, your brain learns action. If you avoid challenges, your brain learns fear. If you face them, your brain learns courage. This is how identity is shaped, not by what you say, but by what you do repeatedly. So if you want to change your identity, you must change your daily actions. You don't need big actions. You need consistent ones. Small actions, repeated daily, create strong change. For example, if you want to become disciplined, start by completing small tasks every day. If you want to become confident, start by taking small actions despite fear. If you want to think clearly, start by observing your thoughts daily. These actions may seem simple, but their power comes from repetition. One action does not change you, but repeated actions do. Over time, your brain starts to expect these actions. They become automatic. They become part of you. This is reprogramming. Another important idea is consistency over intensity. Many people try to change quickly. They start with high energy. They do a lot in a short time, but they cannot continue. They get tired, they lose motivation, and they stop. This creates a cycle. Start strong, stop, restart, stop again. This does not create real change, because there is no consistency. Consistency means showing up regularly, even when you don't feel motivated, even when the action is small, even when it feels boring. Because consistency builds trust. Your brain starts to trust your behavior. It sees that you act regularly, not just when you feel like it. This creates a stable identity. You become someone who acts, not someone who waits. It is better to do a small action every day than a big action once in a while, because repetition is stronger than intensity. Think of it like this. A small drop of water, repeated many times, can shape stone, not because it is strong, but because it is consistent. Your actions work the same way. They shape your mind, slowly, quietly, but powerfully. Another key point is patience. Reprogramming takes time. Your current patterns were built over years. They will not change in a few days. But every day you repeat a new action. You are building something new. Even if you don't see results immediately, trust the process. Focus on the repetition, not the result, because results come later. Repetition comes first. You also need to remove unnecessary pressure. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to do everything. You just need to continue. If you miss a day, start again. Do not stop completely. Consistency does not mean perfection. It means continuation. Over time, something changes inside you. Your actions feel easier. Your resistance becomes lower. Your confidence becomes stronger, because your brain has learned a new pattern. You are no longer forcing yourself. You are following a new identity. This is the goal. Not temporary change, but lasting change. And lasting change comes from repetition. So look at your daily life. What are you repeating? Because whatever you repeat, you become. If you want to reprogram your mind, start with your actions. Make them simple, make them consistent, and repeat them daily. Because in the end, your brain does not become what you want. It becomes what you repeat. Chapter 9. Control your input. Control your life. Your mind is always taking in information. From the moment you wake up to the moment you sleep, you are consuming something. Videos, social media, conversations, news, music, thoughts. This is your information diet. Just like food affects your body, information affects your mind. If you eat unhealthy food every day, your body becomes weak. If you consume negative information every day, your mind becomes weak. Your thoughts, mood, and decisions are shaped by what you take in daily. This is why controlling your input is so important. Because what you consume becomes how you think. Think about your daily routine. What do you see first in the morning? Social media, messages, news. If the first thing you see is stress, comparison, or negativity, your mind starts the day in that state. And that feeling continues. The same happens throughout the day. If you constantly consume content that creates fear, doubt, or distraction, your thinking becomes unclear. Your focus becomes weak. Your confidence becomes unstable. This is not random. It is programming. Your brain learns from repetition. If it sees negativity often, it expects negativity. If it sees distraction often, it becomes distracted. That is why you must protect your mental environment. Your mind is like a space, and not everything deserves to enter that space. But many people allow everything in. Every video, every opinion, every piece of news, without filtering, without thinking. This creates noise, too much information, too many opinions, too many distractions. And when your mind is full of noise, clarity becomes difficult. You start to feel overwhelmed. You lose direction. You hesitate more, because your thinking is not focused. Protecting your mental environment means being selective. It means choosing what you allow into your mind. Not everything is useful. Not everything helps you grow. So you must decide, what deserves my attention? What is helping me become better? If something does not add value, reduce it. You don't need to remove everything, but you need to be aware. Start by observing your habits. How much time do you spend on social media? What type of content do you watch? How do you feel after consuming it? If you feel tired, distracted, or negative, that is a signal. Your input is not helping you. Now replace negative inputs with growth-focused ones. Instead of random scrolling, choose content that teaches, content that inspires, content that challenges you to think. This does not mean you stop relaxing. It means you become intentional. You choose what you consume, instead of letting it control you. The same applies to conversations. The people you talk to influence your thinking. If your conversations are always negative, complaining, judging, blaming, your mindset will reflect that. But if your conversations are about ideas, growth, and solutions, your thinking will improve. So pay attention to your environment, not just physical, but mental. Choose people who support growth, people who take action, people who think differently, And if you cannot find them around you, you can still choose your input through books, videos, and learning. Your environment is not only where you are, it is also what you consume. Another important step is to reduce unnecessary input. You do not need to know everything. You do not need to watch everything. Too much information creates confusion instead of clarity. So simplify. Focus on what matters. Remove what does not. For example, limit your time on platforms that distract you. Turn off notifications that interrupt your focus. Create time where you are not consuming, but thinking, because thinking is important. If you only consume and never reflect, your mind becomes full but not clear. Now let's talk about designing your surroundings. Your environment should support your goals, not distract you from them. If you want to focus, create a space that allows focus. Clean, simple, without distractions. If you want to learn, keep learning materials close. Books, notes, tools. Make it easy to do the right thing and harder to do the wrong thing. For example, if your phone distracts you, keep it away while working. If social media takes your time, limit access during important hours. These small changes make a big difference because your behavior follows your environment. If your environment supports focus, you will focus more. If it supports distraction, you will get distracted. You don't need strong willpower. You need a better setup. Another key idea is intention. Most people consume without thinking. They scroll without purpose, watch without awareness. But when you become intentional, everything changes. Before you consume something, ask, why am I watching this? What will I gain from this? If there is no clear answer, it may not be useful. This simple question can save hours and protect your mental energy. Over time, as you control your input, your thinking becomes clearer, your focus becomes stronger, your decisions become better, because your mind is no longer filled with noise, it is filled with direction. You feel more in control, not because life is easier, but because your environment supports you. And this is the key. You may not control everything in life, but you can control what enters your mind. And that is powerful, because your thoughts shape your actions, and your actions shape your life. So if you want to change your life, start with your input. Be selective, be intentional, be aware. Because when you control your input, you control your thinking. And when you control your thinking, you begin to control your life. Chapter 10, Build a New Identity. Most people try to change by thinking. They read, they plan, they imagine a better version of themselves, but nothing really changes. Why? Because thinking alone does not create change. Action does. You don't become different by thinking differently. You become different by acting differently. Your identity is not what you say about yourself. It is what you do repeatedly. If you act with discipline, you become disciplined. If you act with confidence, you become confident. Identity is built through behavior. Every action you take is like a vote for the type of person you are becoming. When you repeat the same actions, those votes add up, and over time, they create a clear identity. This is why change feels difficult, because you are not just changing actions, you are changing identity. And identity is built over time. So how do you build a new one? You start by acting like your future self, not thinking like them, acting like them. Ask yourself, what would the version of me I want to become do right now? Would they delay? Would they avoid? Or would they act? Once you have that answer, you follow it, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it does not feel natural. Because at the beginning, it won't. Your current identity will resist. It will say, this is not you. This feels wrong. But that is normal. You are stepping outside your old pattern. You are creating something new, and new always feels uncomfortable at first. The mistake many people make is waiting to feel ready. They think, I will act like that when I become confident. But it works the opposite way. You act first, then you become. Confidence comes after action. not before. So start small. You don't need to change everything. Just choose one behavior, one action, and repeat it. For example, if you want to become disciplined, start completing one task daily. If you want to become confident, start speaking up more. If you want to become focused, start reducing distractions. These small actions are powerful because they are repeated, and repetition builds identity. Over time, something changes. You stop forcing yourself. The action becomes natural. It becomes part of who you are. That is when identity shifts. Another important step is letting go of your past identity. Many people stay stuck because they hold on to old labels. I am lazy. I am not confident. I always fail. These are not facts. They are descriptions of past behavior. But if you keep repeating them, you keep reinforcing them, you stay the same. To change, you must stop identifying with the past. You are not your past actions. You are your current actions and your future actions. So instead of saying, I am not disciplined, focus on what you do today. If you act with discipline, even once, you are already changing. Identity is not fixed. It is flexible. It changes with behavior. This is important to remember because it gives you control. You don't need to wait. You don't need permission. You just need to act. And keep acting, again and again, until it becomes natural. Building a new identity takes time, but it is simple. Act like the person you want to become. Repeat those actions daily. Let go of old labels and focus on what you do now, because in the end, you don't become your thoughts. You become your actions, and your identity follows what you repeat. Chapter 11. Discipline rewires the brain. Most people wait for motivation. They act when they feel ready. They stop when they don't. This creates inconsistency. Some days they move forward. Other days they do nothing. And over time, this pattern keeps them stuck. This is why discipline is more important than motivation. Motivation is temporary. It comes and goes. You may feel inspired today, but that feeling may disappear tomorrow. Discipline is different. Discipline means doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It removes the need to wait. It replaces emotion with action. And this is what creates real change. Your brain learns from what you repeat. If you act only when you feel motivated, your brain learns inconsistency. But if you act daily, regardless of how you feel, your brain learns stability. This is how discipline rewires the brain. It creates new patterns, new expectations, new habits. Over time, your brain starts to expect action, not excuses. This makes everything easier, because you are no longer deciding every day. You are following a system. This is where routine becomes powerful. A routine is a set of actions you repeat regularly. It gives structure to your day. It removes confusion. Instead of asking, what should I do now? You already know. This saves mental energy. It reduces hesitation. And it increases focus. For example, if you have a set time to work, you don't wait for the right mood, you start. If you have a daily habit of learning, you don't question it, you do it. This consistency builds strength, not physical strength, but mental strength, because every time you follow your routine, you prove something to yourself. I can rely on myself. This builds self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Without it, you doubt your actions, you hesitate, you delay. But when you trust yourself, you act faster. You decide with clarity, because you know you will follow through. Self-trust does not come from thinking. It comes from consistency, from keeping promises to yourself, even small promises. For example, if you say you will do something, and you do it, you build trust. If you say it and don't do it, you weaken trust. These small moments matter, because they shape how you see yourself. Over time, discipline creates identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who waits, and start seeing yourself as someone who acts. This is a powerful shift, Because identity drives behavior. When you believe, I am disciplined, you act accordingly. And that belief comes from repeated action, not from words. Another important point is long-term transformation. Discipline is not about quick results. It is about lasting change. Many people look for fast success. They want immediate results. But real growth takes time. It is built through habits, daily actions repeated over months and years. These habits shape your life. For example, a small habit done daily becomes a big result over time. Reading daily builds knowledge. Working daily builds skill. Acting daily builds confidence. But only if it is consistent. This is why discipline matters. It keeps you moving, even when results are not visible, even when progress feels slow, because you trust the process, and that trust keeps you going. You also need to understand that discipline is not always easy. There will be days when you don't feel like acting, days when it feels boring or difficult. But those are the most important days, because acting on those days builds strength. It shows that you are in control, not your emotions. This is how discipline rewires your brain. It changes your default behavior from waiting to acting, from avoiding to doing, from inconsistent to reliable. And over time, this becomes natural. You no longer depend on motivation. You depend on your system. And that system supports you. So stop waiting for the perfect feeling. Stop depending on motivation. Build discipline. Create a simple routine. Follow it daily, even when it feels small, even when it feels slow. Because consistency creates change, and that change builds identity. In the end, discipline is not just about doing more. It is about becoming someone who follows through. And once you become that person, everything else becomes easier. Chapter 12. Time is running. The urgency shift. Time feels slow until you look back. Then suddenly, years have passed. Moments you thought you had plenty of time for are gone. This is the illusion you live in. You believe there is always later. Later to start, later to improve, later to become who you want to be. But later is the most dangerous lie your mind tells you, because later rarely comes. It gets replaced by more delay, more distraction, more excuses. And before you realize it, you are still in the same place. The cost of staying the same is not obvious at first. It feels comfortable, safe, easy. But over time, that comfort becomes a trap. Because while you stay the same, life keeps moving, opportunities pass, energy declines, time disappears. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to fall behind your own potential. This is the real cost. Not failure, not mistakes, but inaction. The things you didn't try, the decisions you delayed, the chances you avoided. That is what turns into regret. And regret is far heavier than discomfort. Discomfort is temporary. It exists in the moment when you act, when you try something new, when you step outside your comfort zone, when you take a risk. It feels uncomfortable, but it passes. Regret stays. It grows over time. It shows up in quiet moments, when you think about what could have been. And the painful truth is this: most people don't fail because they tried and lost. They fail because they never tried at all. They waited. They delayed. They believed they had more time. But time does not wait. Every day you delay action. You reinforce the habit of waiting. You train your brain to hesitate, and that hesitation becomes your default. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. And suddenly, change feels harder than ever. Not because you can't change, but because you've practiced staying the same. This is why urgency matters. Not panic, not pressure, but awareness. The awareness that your time is limited, and that every moment you delay is a moment you don't get back. This shift changes everything. You stop asking, when should I start? And start saying, why not now? You stop waiting for the perfect time, because you realize it doesn't exist. You stop negotiating with hesitation because you see its cost. Taking action now does not mean making big, dramatic changes. It means starting right where you are, with what you have. Even a small step breaks the pattern. Even a small action creates momentum, and momentum changes direction. Think about it this way. If you keep doing what you are doing today, where will you be in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10? That future is not random. It is being built right now, through your daily actions, or your lack of them. This is the urgency shift. You stop seeing time as unlimited and start seeing it as valuable. You stop delaying and start deciding. You stop waiting and start moving. Because the truth is simple. You will never feel fully ready. You will never have perfect conditions. You will never eliminate uncertainty. But you can act right now. And that action, no matter how small, changes everything. So don't wait for a better moment. Don't wait for more confidence. Don't wait for later, because later is not guaranteed. But this moment is, and what you do with it defines your future. Time is running. The question is, will you keep waiting, or will you finally move? Conclusion. You are not your past programming. The thoughts you've repeated, the habits you've built, the patterns you've followed, they may feel like who you are, but they are not your identity. They are learned, and anything learned can be changed. The moment you become aware of this, something powerful happens. You gain choice. Choice to question your thoughts. Choice to interrupt your patterns. Choice to act differently, even when it feels uncomfortable. Awareness is where everything begins. Without it, you stay on autopilot, repeating the same behaviors, making the same decisions, and creating the same outcomes. But with awareness, you step out of that loop. You begin to see what was once invisible. And once you see it, you can change it. But change does not come from big, dramatic shifts. It comes from small actions, daily decisions, simple interruptions, consistent effort, a different thought, a different response, a different step. These may seem small in the moment, but over time they reshape everything. Because your future is not built on what you intend to do. It is built on what you repeatedly do. Your mental patterns shape your behavior. Your behavior shapes your results. And your results shape your life. So if you want a different future, you must build different patterns. And that is a daily decision. Not once, not occasionally, but every single day. To observe, to choose, to act. Reprogramming your mind is not a one-time event. It is a process, a commitment, a way of living. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Until one day you realize you are no longer controlled by your old patterns. You are creating new ones. And that is where real change begins. Call to action. Now take a moment and ask yourself, what belief has been controlling your life without you even noticing? Don't just think about it. Write it down. And if you're willing, share it in the comments. Someone else might be struggling with the same pattern, and your awareness could help them see it too. If this message connected with you, send it to someone who needs a shift right now. Sometimes one idea is enough to change someone's direction. And if you want more content like this, deep, practical mindset audiobooks, make sure you subscribe and stay connected. Reprogram your mind, or your mind will control your life.